You want a beginning, but before you can begin, you must be honest about where you are. Most people want inspiration without confrontation, encouragement without repentance, comfort without truth. That is not how real beginnings happen. Real beginnings are violent to pride. They tear down before they build up. They expose before they heal. And if you are not willing to face that, then what you call a new start will only be a polished version of the same old life. Mindful beginnings are not about techniques. They are not about breathing exercises or morning routines or motivational phrases written on a mirror. Those things may have their place, but they are powerless if the heart remains untouched. A mindful beginning starts when a person stops running from reality, when they stop blaming others, when they stop excusing themselves, when they stand still long enough to see the truth about who they are, what they love, and what governs their decisions. Most people are not ruined by ignorance. They are ruined by distraction. They live their lives numb. They scroll, they consume, they entertain themselves into spiritual sleep. Their minds are constantly occupied, but never disciplined. Their thoughts are everywhere, yet never examined, and then they wonder why their lives have no direction, no depth, no weight. A mindful beginning demands that you reclaim your mind from chaos, that you stop allowing every voice, every impulse, every desire to rule you. You must understand this. The mind is not neutral ground. Whatever you feed, it will shape you. Whatever you dwell on will direct you. Whatever you excuse will enslave you. You do not drift toward wisdom. You drift toward decay. If you are not intentional, you will be formed by the loudest influence around you, not the truest one. So a beginning that is mindful is a beginning that is deliberate. It says, I will no longer live on autopilot. I will no longer be governed by impulse. I will no longer pretend that small compromises do not matter. Many want a fresh start, but they refuse to change what they think about when no one is watching. They want transformation without discipline. They want peace without obedience. They want clarity without silence. But a mind that is never quiet will never be clear. You cannot hear truth when your soul is constantly shouting for noise. There must be moments when you shut the door, remove the distractions, and sit alone with your thoughts. And that terrifies people because in silence, excuses die. In silence, you meet yourself. A mindful beginning requires humility. And humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking accurately about yourself. It is admitting that you have been wrong, that some of your habits are destructive, that some of your dreams are shallow, that some of your desires are corrupt. Pride resists this. Pride wants to rush forward, to build something new without tearing down what is rotten. But anything built on dishonesty will eventually collapse. You cannot begin well if you will not judge yourself honestly, and that judgment must be severe, not cruel, but truthful. You must ask hard questions. Why do I do what I do? What am I really living for? Who benefits from my choices? What am I avoiding? What am I afraid to surrender? These are not questions you answer quickly. These are questions you wrestle with, and the struggle itself is part of the beginning. People often speak about mindfulness as if it were merely awareness, but awareness without moral clarity is useless. To be mindful is not simply to observe your thoughts, but to discern them, to challenge them, to bring them into alignment with what is true, not what is comfortable. Your mind will lie to you. Your emotions will exaggerate. Your desires will rationalize. If you do not learn to govern your thoughts, you will be governed by them. A true beginning starts when you recognize that your life is not an accident. You are not a victim of fate or circumstance. You are responsible. That does not mean you have not been wounded. It does not mean you have not suffered. But it does mean that you are accountable for how you respond. And accountability is terrifying to those who want to remain unchanged, but it is freedom to those who want to grow. You do not need a dramatic moment. You do not need a public declaration. You need a private resolve, a quiet, unshakable decision that you will no longer live carelessly, that you will no longer excuse sin with sophistication, that you will no longer confuse busyness with purpose. A mindful beginning often looks unimpressive from the outside. It looks like someone choosing discipline over comfort, truth over approval, long-term faithfulness over short-term pleasure. Do not underestimate small beginnings. The mind is shaped in moments no one applauds, in the decision to turn off what dulls you, in the choice to get up when you want to stay down, in the resolve to think rightly when it would be easier to think bitterly. Most people fail not because they are incapable, but because they are undisciplined. They do not lack potential. They lack direction. You must understand that your thoughts are not harmless. What you repeatedly think becomes what you believe. What you believe becomes how you live, and how you live becomes who you are. A mindful beginning interrupts that cycle. It says, I will no longer allow my mind to wander into corruption. I will no longer entertain thoughts that weaken me. I will train my mind as a servant, not allow it to rule as a tyrant. This will require endurance. Because the old patterns will resist you, the familiar will call you back. You will be tempted to quit when progress feels slow, but do not be deceived. Depth takes time. Roots grow in darkness before fruit appears in light. If you abandon the process because it is uncomfortable, you prove that you were never serious about change, only about relief. There is something profoundly serious about beginnings. They set trajectories. A careless beginning leads to a wasted life. A thoughtful beginning leads to clarity, but clarity is costly. It will demand that you say no to things you once loved, that you walk away from influences that weaken you, that you stand alone at times, misunderstood and even mocked. But isolation is better than corruption. Loneliness is better than compromise. Mindfulness is not passivity. It is vigilance. It is watching over your heart with intensity. It is refusing to allow subtle lies to take root. It is recognizing that what you tolerate today will dominate you tomorrow. So you act early. You cut off what poisons you. You discipline what distracts you. You align your mind with truth even when your emotions resist. Many people are waiting for motivation to change. That is backwards. Discipline precedes motivation. Obedience precedes feeling. If you wait until you feel ready, you will wait forever. A mindful beginning does not wait for ideal conditions. It begins now in weakness, in uncertainty, in fear, and it moves forward one faithful step at a time. Do not romanticize beginnings. They are often quiet, painful, and unseen. They involve repentance more than celebration. They involve mourning what you have wasted and resolving not to waste what remains. And that mourning is healthy. It sobers you. It anchors you in reality. It keeps you from repeating the same foolish cycles under a different name. Your mind must be renewed if your life is to be transformed, not entertained, not medicated, renewed. That renewal comes through truth applied daily, consistently, relentlessly. You do not need new information. You need obedience to what you already know. You need to stop negotiating with what is right and start submitting to it. A mindful beginning is a declaration of war against complacency. It is a refusal to live shallowly. It is a commitment to depth in a world addicted to speed, and that commitment will shape everything else: how you speak, how you listen, how you choose, how you endure. You are not as trapped as you think, but you are not as free as you pretend. Freedom is not the absence of limits. It is the presence of truth, and truth demands alignment. Your thoughts must align with it. Your habits must align with it. Your ambitions must align with it. Anything else is self-deception. So begin, not loudly, not dramatically. Begin with your mind. Begin with honesty. Begin with discipline. Begin with a reverent seriousness about how you live and why you live. Let your beginning be marked by clarity, not confusion, by resolve, not emotion, by humility, not hype. And if you do this, if you guard your thoughts, if you submit your mind to truth, if you endure when it is difficult, you will look back one day and realize that what seemed like a small, quiet decision was the turning point of your life. The moment you stopped drifting and started walking, the moment you ceased being ruled by impulse and began living with purpose, the moment a mindful beginning reshaped everything that followed. True beginnings are never gentle with pride. They do not flatter a person into change, they confront them into it. Anyone who believes a new start can happen without honest self-examination has never truly begun anything of substance. Most people want a reset that leaves their self-image intact. They want progress without exposure, growth without discomfort, transformation without confession. But a real beginning does not negotiate with denial. It demands truth, and truth always starts by dismantling the lies we have learned to live with. Self-confrontation is not self-hatred, but it feels threatening to those who survive on self-justification. It is the moment when excuses lose their power, when you stop blaming circumstances, people, upbringing, timing, or bad luck. When you stop explaining away patterns that have repeated themselves for years. You look at your life as it actually is, not as you hoped it would become by now, and you refuse to soften the reality. That moment is painful because it strips you of illusions, but it is also the first moment of clarity. Without it, every attempt at change is cosmetic. Most people avoid honest self-confrontation because it removes the comfort of confusion. Confusion allows you to stay inactive while feeling thoughtful. It allows you to say, "I'm figuring things out," instead of admitting, "I'm avoiding responsibility." Discipline of mind cuts through that fog. It forces precision. It asks direct questions and does not accept vague answers. Why are you here? Why are you stuck? Why do you repeat the same behaviors while claiming you want different results? A disciplined mind does not tolerate emotional fog as an excuse for stagnation. The greatest obstacle to disciplined thinking is not lack of intelligence, but lack of courage. It takes courage to admit that you have loved comfort more than truth. Courage to admit that you have chosen distraction over depth. Courage to admit that some of your suffering is not imposed on you but produced by you. That realization shatters victimhood, and many people would rather remain wounded than responsible. But responsibility is the doorway to freedom. Until you accept it, every beginning will be false. A mind without discipline is easily manipulated. It reacts instead of responding. It is governed by mood, appetite, fear, and approval. Such a mind is constantly busy but rarely productive. It consumes information endlessly but applies almost nothing. It confuses stimulation with growth. Discipline introduces restraint. It teaches the mind to pause, to question impulses, to refuse immediate gratification in favor of long-term truth. That restraint is not restrictive, it is clarifying. It removes the noise so that what matters can be seen. Honest self-confrontation exposes contradictions. You say you want change, yet you cling to habits that make change impossible. You say you value peace, yet you feed your mind with chaos. You say you want purpose, yet you avoid the discipline required to sustain it. These contradictions cannot be resolved by motivation. They can only be resolved by submission to truth. A disciplined mind does not argue with reality. It aligns with it, even when alignment costs comfort. Many people mistake thinking for feeling strongly. They assume that intensity equals depth. But strong emotions without disciplined thought lead to impulsive decisions and repeated regret. Disciplined thinking evaluates emotions without being enslaved by them. It asks whether a feeling is justified, whether it is temporary, whether it should be acted upon or resisted. This does not make a person cold, it makes them stable. Stability is the soil in which lasting change grows. Self-confrontation also reveals what you truly love, not what you claim to love, but what your time, energy, and attention testify to. Love is not measured by words, but by sacrifice. A disciplined mind forces you to account for how you spend your days. It does not allow you to hide behind intentions while your actions tell a different story. This accountability feels harsh, but it is honest. And honesty is the foundation of any real beginning. There is a reason people avoid silence. Silence removes distractions, and distractions protect lies. When the noise fades, the mind begins to speak clearly, and what it says is often uncomfortable. Regrets surface, patterns become visible, weaknesses can no longer be ignored. A disciplined thinker does not run from this. They enter it intentionally. They use silence as a tool rather than an enemy. In that stillness, self-deception weakens and clarity strengthens. True beginnings require the willingness to be wrong. That may sound simple, but it is one of the most difficult admissions a person can make. Being wrong means your current way of thinking has failed you. It means your instincts are not sufficient guides. It means you need correction. Pride resists this with everything it has. Pride reframes failure as bad luck, weakness as uniqueness, rebellion as independence. Discipline strips away these disguises. It calls things what they are. A disciplined mind does not romanticize struggle, but it respects it. It understands that growth is not instant and that consistency matters more than intensity. It rejects shortcuts because shortcuts bypass formation. Anyone can change temporarily under pressure or emotion. Very few are willing to change slowly through daily obedience to truth. That obedience is not glamorous. It is repetitive, it often feels unnoticed, but it reshapes a person from the inside where real change must occur. Self-confrontation also demands that you acknowledge limits. You are not limitless. You cannot do everything. You cannot be everything. The belief that you can is not empowering. It is exhausting. Discipline teaches you to accept constraints and work wisely within them. It helps you distinguish between what is necessary and what is noise. This focus protects you from burnout and keeps you from scattering your energy across meaningless pursuits. Many people sabotage beginnings by trying to change everything at once. This is not discipline, it is desperation. A disciplined thinker understands order and priority. They identify what must be addressed first and commit to it fully. They do not chase novelty. They value depth. They understand that sustained attention to a few crucial areas will produce more change than shallow attention to many. This patience is a sign of maturity. Honest self-confrontation also dismantles comparison. When you measure yourself against others, you avoid dealing with yourself. Discipline brings the focus inward, not in self-obsession, but in responsibility. It asks whether you are being faithful with what has been entrusted to you. It frees you from the paralysis of envy and the arrogance of superiority. Both are distractions from the work that must be done within. A mind without discipline is reactive. A disciplined mind is intentional. It chooses its inputs carefully. It recognizes that what you repeatedly expose yourself to will shape you. This is not paranoia, it is wisdom. You do not plant poison and expect fruit. Disciplined thinking guards the mind because the mind governs the life. This guarding is not about fear, but about stewardship. Self-confrontation also reveals motives. Why do you want to change? Is it for approval? Is it to escape consequences? Is it to appear improved rather than to be transformed? A disciplined mind interrogates motives because impure motives eventually corrupt good actions. It is better to delay a beginning than to start it on a false foundation. Speed does not compensate for dishonesty. There is a cost to disciplined thinking. It isolates you from the crowd at times. It makes you question what others accept without thought. It slows you down in a culture obsessed with immediacy, but that cost is far less than the cost of an undisciplined life, which is confusion, instability, and regret. Discipline feels heavy at first, but chaos is heavier in the long run. True beginnings are marked by seriousness, not joylessness, but weight, a recognition that life is not trivial and choices matter. Disciplined thinking restores gravity to decision-making. It removes the casualness with which many people treat their own lives. When you understand that every habit shapes you, every thought trains you, and every choice directs you, you stop living carelessly. Self-confrontation does not end once a beginning starts. It becomes a practice. Discipline is not a phase, it is a posture. You continually examine yourself, not to condemn, but to correct. This ongoing humility keeps growth possible. The moment you believe you no longer need examination is the moment decay begins. Many people want peace, but they avoid discipline, not realizing that peace is the result of alignment. A disciplined mind aligns thought with truth, desire with reality, action with purpose. That alignment removes internal conflict. Without it, a person may experience pleasure, but not peace. Pleasure distracts, peace stabilizes. True beginnings are not defined by external change, but by internal order. When the mind is disciplined, decisions become clearer. When self-confrontation is embraced, excuses lose power. This does not make life easy, but it makes it honest, and honesty is fertile ground. From it grows clarity, endurance, and direction, the kind that does not fade when emotions shift or circumstances change, the kind that sustains a life when novelty wears off and only truth remains, shaping thought by thought, choice by choice, day after day.